Suicidal thoughts. There are two types of suicidal thoughts that one can experience. They're called active suicidal thoughts and passive suicidal thoughts. So passive suicidal thoughts is when you're thinking, I just want to die. There's no point in living. I'm hopeless. There's no hope for me. And you're in that state where you feel stuck and you want to die. Active, on the other hand, that's a bit more severe, where you're actually planning and plotting how you're going to commit suicide. And I want to point out that suicidal thoughts, particularly the passive ones, more so the passive ones, are quite common. And they do call for concern, obviously, but if you're at the stage where you're experiencing passive suicidal thoughts, it's fixable. I suggest doing CBT exercises. Now, I've had, bouts of depression and suicidal depression in the past, mainly experiencing passive suicidal thoughts. I think I've only ever experienced active suicidal thoughts maybe once or twice in my lifetime. Luckily for me, when I experience depression, my depression is really weird, because it'll hit me and it only lasts for maybe a few hours, and it'll just hit me like a freight train. But it only lasts for about 4 hours, where I just drop, and then suddenly I come back up to normal. So luckily, during those periods where I've had active suicidal thoughts, it hasn't lasted long enough for me to actually start plotting and get to that stage. But other than that, I've had a lot of passive suicidal thoughts. And what I've done is I've done a few CBT exercises. The reason why I suggest CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is because when you're feeling stuck and depressed, usually you can trace that feeling and that mood back to a thought, a cognitive distortion that you've experienced. And if you can trace your mood back to that cognitive distortion, and then you can break the cognitive distortion down and come up with a rational response, you can then start to see the light. You can then start to you feel better almost instantly if you do the exercise correctly, and you bring some light to the situation, and you feel better with rational thinking instead of these distortions. So go for CBT if you're feeling down and stuck.